recent weeks, the Myanmar military has suffered a series of heavy defeats. Notably, they have lost Lashio, one of the most important towns in Shan State. It is only about 120 kilometers west of the Chinese border, about 125 kilometers east of the Ruby Valleys, and about 200 kilometers northeast of Mandalay. Civil War, and how is this country suffering from a terrifying geographical curse? In today, the situation of Myanmar's civil war. Not long after the military overthrew the civilian government led by Aung San Suu Kyi, Myanmar quickly entered a civil war on May 5, 2021. In the early period, the Tatmadaw still demonstrated its combat capabilities. But on October 27, 2023, the Brotherhood Alliance, comprising the Arakan Army, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, and the Tong National Liberation Army, launched a powerful offensive in the area bordering China in northern Shan State. There, both sides struggled to capture Laokai, the capital of the Kokal region. This is a famous gambling hub, as well as a major center for online scam activities. Finally, after nearly 2 months of siege, the Brotherhood Alliance achieved victory on January 5, 2024. A total of 90 Tatmadaw soldiers were killed and 2,479 surrendered. Laokai was the first regional military command headquarters lost. After that, the northern Shan State area temporarily calmed down when China stepped in as a mediator, and both sides agreed to an immediate ceasefire, simultaneously ending hostilities. Nevertheless, the civil war in Myanmar did not stop because of this. On June 9, 2024, the Tong National Liberation Army, one of the members of the Brotherhood Alliance, accused the Myanmar military of violating the China-mediated ceasefire after the Tatmadaw conducted airstrikes on Mongda town. Tensions continued to escalate in the following weeks, and clashes broke out from late June 2024, focusing on Lashio. This is home to about 150,000 people and is the largest town in northern Shan State. Not only that, it is also located on a major trade highway connecting to China and is only about 200 kilometers northeast of Mandalay. Because it is so important, Lashio is the location of the Myanmar military's Northeastern Regional Military Command Headquarters, with about 30 battalions stationed. The Battle of Lashio officially began on July 6 when the Brotherhood Alliance used artillery and UAVs to attack the town. However, they temporarily halted their advance for 4 days while the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party took place from July 15 to 18. Afterwards, the Brotherhood Alliance continued the attack, and just 1 week later, specifically on July 25, they captured the Northeastern Regional Military. But the fighting within the town continued to drag on. By August 3, the Alliance declared it had completely controlled Lashio and defeated all remaining military units in the town. A total of 4,000 Tatmadaw soldiers surrendered, while the Brotherhood Alliance side had 500 dead and over 1,000 wounded. It can be seen that the Myanmar military is gradually weakening. In the Laokai battle, they could hold out for nearly 2 months. Then in the battle at Lashio, the Tatmadaw fell within 1 month, even though the opponent had ceased fire for 4 days. The next target could be Mogok, as this town supplies up to 90% of the world's rubies. Losing economic centers will further increase the already heavy territorial losses of the Myanmar military government. While conflict in this country has been escalating since the 2021 coup. Not only that, the Tatmadaw's defeat at Lashio also marks the first time this force has lost one of its 14 regional military commands. The forces stationed across the country stretch from the foothills of the Himalayas in the north to the vast plains in the south bordering the Indian Ocean. Myanmar and the geographical curse. Myanmar is a vast country with an area of up to 676,579 square kilometers, stretching about 1,450 kilometers from the high mountains in the northern region to the coastal plains in the south. However, this country has an area bordering Thailand stretching from Myanmar to Kaohsiung with a length of 750 kilometers, while the distance from the easternmost to the westernmost point is also up to 930 kilometers. Not only is it large in size, Myanmar also has majestic mountain ranges, accounting for In the north lies the Hunyuan Mountains, forming the natural border between China and Myanmar. Among them, the highest point in the country is Wazi, which is 5,881 meters above sea level and is also the highest mountain in Southeast Asia. Not only that, all 8 of the highest mountains in the region are located in northern Myanmar. To the west is the Arakan Mountains, separating Rakhine State from the rest of the country. The highest point here is Nat Montong, which is 3,070 meters above sea level. Most of the population in this area lives around the Colonial River, with its estuary at Sitwe Town, the capital of Rakhine State. To the east is the Shan Plateau, with its highest point being Loi Lane, which is 2,600. Due to its hilly terrain, this area is deeply dissected and forms valleys. Among them, the Salween River is the main flow. It originates from Tibet, flows southward through the middle of Shan State, then forms part of the Myanmar-Thailand border before emptying. At its estuary is a relatively large plain, and further south along the Andaman coast are a series of small plains. This area is bounded by the Tenasserim Range to the east and the Karen Hills to the west. Both have dense forests, with the Tenasserim Range being the natural border between Myanmar and Thailand, and the Karen Hills being the boundary between the southeastern plains. This is where the Irrawaddy River system, the most important waterway for the country, flows. Originating from the high mountains in the north, the Mali and Enwai rivers converge and continue flowing south to form the Irrawaddy River. It then receives the flow of the Myitne and Chindwin rivers before heading south and emptying into the Indian Ocean. The lower section of the Irrawaddy River runs almost parallel to the Sidam River, separated only by a low range called the Pegudoma, whose highest point is the volcanic Mount Poga at 1,518 meters. It can be seen that the Irrawaddy River system flows through most of Myanmar's area and forms the central lowlands. This region itself is divided into two: Upper Burma in the north and Lower Burma in the south. Upper Burma is a relatively arid area as it is separated from the Indian Ocean by the Arakan Range to the west and the Pegudoma to the south. Has cultivated land and 35% of the country. As a result, this area accounts for 1/3 of the population. The lower Burma region in the south receives even more abundant rainfall, up to 2,500. However, this area is frequently flooded during the rainy season and must endure powerful tropical cyclones. But due to fertile alluvial soil, this area also has about 1/3 of Myanmar. It can be seen that the central region of the country is a densely populated lowland area, thanks to water from the Irrawaddy River system, which accounts for about 2/3 of Myanmar's population, mostly low, while the surrounding high mountain ranges are home to ethnic minorities, accounting for about 1/3 of the country's population. This creates many difficulties for the central government in controlling the territory. Therefore, unified national administrative management is something Myanmar has never truly achieved. A history full of upheavals. Myanmar has a very special location, situated between the Indian subcontinent to the west, the Tibetan Plateau to the north, and the Mekong and Salween River basins to the east. Therefore, this land has seen many migration flows pass through in prehistoric times, and humans settled here about 11. Around the 2nd century BC, the Pyu people migrated from the Tibetan Plateau southward along rivers and established city-states in Upper Burma, while the Mon people began migrating westward to Lower Burma, settling in the Tenasserim and Irrawaddy plains, and later established the Thetan Kingdom. By the 7th century, the Lamar people began migrating from the Tibetan Plateau and gradually unified the Pyu city-states to form the Thetan Kingdom. While a group of Bamar migrated westward and defeated the Indian Arakan Kingdom here to begin the Lemro dynasty. In the following centuries, the Thetan Kingdom continuously confronted the Thetan Kingdom. Under the great King Anarata, he built irrigation works to turn the arid land of Upper Burma into a rice bowl. At the same time, he also reformed the military, thereby achieving a decisive victory over the Mon. From here, many people migrated southward, especially to the southern Tenasserim. By the 13th century, the Bagan kingdom began to decline and collapsed in 1287 after the Mongol invasion. While the Arakan kingdom escaped subjugation, the Hmong re-established their own country, the Vying Kingdom. The situation in Upper Burma was relatively chaotic until the Ada Kingdom was established in 1365. They attempted to reclaim the former lands of the Bagan Kingdom to restore its glorious days. But the results were not as desired. After a long period of confrontation, by the 16th century, both the Ada Kingdom and the Vying Kingdom were severe. Among them, the Ada Kingdom was frequently raided by the Shan and fell in 15. At this time, from the small land of Tongu, a new dynasty was being born. With the emergence of the warrior king Bayanang, they successively defeated the Mon in the south and the Shan in the north. However, he did not defeat the Arakanese Marathu kingdom in the west. Instead, he turned eastward and continuously expanded the. But after Bayanang's death, the Tongu dynasty faced much. Nevertheless, his son and grandson managed to retain most. In the following centuries, the Tongu kings sought to tighten control over the Shan region, while also implementing measures to persecute the Mon. By the 18th century, the Tongu Empire was severely weakened. Seizing this opportunity, the Mon re-established. But not long after, a Lamar leader, Alongpaya, unified all of Upper Burma to establish the Kadbong dynasty. Subsequently, he led his troops southward and From here, the Lamar completely dominated the lower Burma to become the majority of the Irrawaddy Delta. While the Mon gradually became a minority, there were also many Karen people living here. Not only that, the Kadbong dynasty also successfully conquered the Arakanese Marathu kingdom, something even the great King Bayanang could not. Afterwards, the Kadbong dynasty continued to expand, and after failing to conquer the east, they began advancing westward, but this time they encountered the British Empire. War inevitably broke out in 1824, resulting in defeat for the Lamar. Not only did they lose the newly conquered territories in the west, they also had to seize strategic southern, namely Arakan and Tanasaram. But the ambitions of European colonialists did not stop there. The British Empire sought pretexts to launch a second war in 1850. This time, the Lamar lost the strategic port of Yangon as well as the entire.
Although King Mindon Min tried to preserve the remainder of the country, upon his death, a succession war broke out.
And at this time, the British seized the opportunity to annex all of Burma in 1880. From here, the country became a province of British India. In just half a century, the traditional society of the Lamar people was drastically altered due to the collapse of the monarchy and the separation of religion and state. Not only that, the British also employed a divide and rule policy by granting power to local leaders in the highlands. In this way, the ethnic differences between the majority Lamar in the Central Plains and the minority groups in the mountainous regions grew increasingly large. In particular, missionaries succeeded in converting some minority groups to Christianity, especially the Karen, Chin, and Kachin. Previously, these groups had never had political or economic influence. Aligning with the British created opportunities to improve their lives. Specifically, only Karen, Chin, and Kachin were allowed to join the colonial army. Additionally, Indian sepoys and Gurkha mercenaries from Nepal were also deployed to manage Burma. The British also allowed hundreds of thousands of Indian workers to migrate to Burma. As they were willing to work for lower wages, they quickly replaced Lamar farmers. By 1931, there were over 1 million Indians in Burma, accounting for about 7% of the population, mainly concentrated in the southern region, especially in Rangoon. Most of them were Hindus and Muslims, and they had distinctly different appearances from the natives. Furthermore, the British encouraged Chinese immigration. According to the 1931 census, the Chinese community here reached 1 million people, also accounting for 7%. Still, all of this caused great resentment among the Lamar, leading them to continuously struggle for autonomy.
An uprising led by Saya San erupted in the early 1930s. Although suppressed in a bloodbath, it marked the turning point in the Bamar struggle movement.
A series of protests broke out afterward, with the participation of thousands of students, including Aung San and U Nu. Finally, in 1937, the British administration changed and separated Burma into a distinct colony, no longer under Indian administration. At this time, the Lamar began joining the army, but not in large numbers, as they did not want to be seen as collaborating with the British. The majority of the military forces here were still from minority ethnic groups, including Karen, Chin, and Kachin.
When World War II broke out, Japan captured the British colony in 1942 and supported the establishment of the Burma Independence Army, led by Aung San.
By 1944, realizing Japan was losing, he switched to the Allied side. Thanks to this, when the war ended, the country of Burma had the opportunity to gain At this time, Aung San convened the Penguin Conference, meeting with leaders of the minority ethnic groups, Shen, Kachin, and Shan. Specifically, these three states had full autonomy and could choose to secede after the country had been independent for 10 years. However, granting rights to minority communities led to Aung San's assassination by extreme nationalists. His departure was a loss for the country of Burma, as he was the only leader capable of uniting the numerous and diverse minority ethnic groups, as well as the divided and different political.
Afterward, Myanmar gained independence in January 1948,
with Prime Minister U Nu as its head. But he decided not to implement the Penguin Agreement. This caused relations between the majority Bamar and many minority ethnic groups in the country to become increasingly tense. Not only that, 3 months after independence, the Communist Party of Burma began a conflict with the central government.
While tensions between Buddhists and Muslims also escalated in Rakhine State.
The Karen, who were a leading force during colonial times but did not participate in the Penguin Agreement, began the secession process. With the support of the Mon, an ethnic group historically oppressed by the Bamar, Karen leaders hoped to establish Kalgoorlie, a country spanning the southern region of Myanmar. In the following period, conflicts spread throughout the country, especially in the northeast, as remnants of the Kuomintang forces entered Shan State.
In such unstable conditions, in 1961, U Nu made Buddhism the state religion to unite the ethnic groups. But this angered the Christian Kachin communities and further spread the conflict.
Not long after, in 1962, General Ne Win staged a coup, simultaneously dissolving parliament, abolishing the Federal Penguin Agreement, and proceeding to reduce the rights of minorities. In particular, he ordered the expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Indians, as well as increased control over Muslims.
4 cuts.
This tactic achieved great success in pushing back the secession movement in the Irrawaddy Delta region. At the same time, General Ne Win also defeated the Communist Party of Burma, forcing them to move from the central region.
Although an excellent leader in the military field, he had a very poor record in managing the economy.
Alongside continuous conflicts, a series of his misguided policies plunged the country into poverty. From one of the world's leading rice exporters, Myanmar fell into a state of food shortage. In particular, Ne Win printed money recklessly, even introducing currency with denominations of 45 and 90 kyats. These disastrous decisions sparked a student movement that erupted on August 8, 1988.
Fearing loss of power, the military quickly reacted. To appease the people, they held elections in 1990.
And the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, the biological daughter of the hero Aung San, won an absolute victory by securing 81% of the seats in the government. However, the military did not accept this result and alleged fraud.
Until 2015 that Myanmar.
Aung San Suu Kyi's party again won a resounding victory, securing 86% of the seats.
By 2020, the National League for Democracy continued to win with 83% of the seats in the election.
However, the Myanmar military did not accept the results and staged a coup. Since then, the conflict has increasingly spread, putting the military. Over the past decades, despite the military leaders' poor economic performance, they have fought against armed ethnic minority groups, thereby preventing secessionist movements across Myanmar. Therefore, many Burmese people also have a certain level of support for the military. Moreover, most Burmese people live in the central region, so they do not directly experience the ongoing conflicts in the border areas. But when the coup occurred in 2021, the Myanmar military used brutal measures to suppress protesters. And it became clear that they were only trying to maintain power, not genuinely concerned about national unity. As a result, the situation has increasingly turned unfavorable for the military government, with recruitment rates declining and desertion numbers. Furthermore, many secessionist forces have received foreign support, further complicating Myanmar's situation. It can be seen that in the past, the dry northern region was the center of power for the Burmese people. while the humid southern area was the land of the Mon people. Throughout centuries of confrontation, Burmese kings utilized the mighty Irrawaddy River to send troops and warships downstream to attack the Mon. And they only truly conquered this region in the mid-18th century, while the mountainous areas remained the territory of ethnic minorities. When the British Empire conquered Myanmar in the 19th century, they encouraged Indian and Chinese migration here, making the ethnic and religious. At the same time, the British also encouraged ethnic minorities to convert to Christianity and combined with regional upheavals after World War II. Myanmar has been unstable since its founding in 1948.
Additionally, a series of misguided policies by the military government have only made things worse. Given this reality, will the Federal Republic of Myanmar disintegrate? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.